Okay, there we go. I hope you can hear me okay. I know I got a fan going on in the background, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Um, Previously, I've had trouble using my laptop to live stream, so I try and use my phone. So hopefully this works out good. Today, what we're going to go over is the LA riots, these current events, what the motives are behind it, and is it authentic or not? And then we're going to look at some comparison from scripture. And I think it's very ironic that tomorrow is, was it King Day? Tomorrow is No King's Day, right? This is a organization. A lot of it is actually being funded by, who is it, the owner or CEO of Walmart? Is funding a lot of this, um, paid for, paying for these organizations. So, what we know about all these organizations throughout all the nation right now for No King's Day is it's not a grassroots movement. It's not authentic. Um, Today, our got a notification from Raul Labrador, our Attorney General. He was pointing out all the different locations. Sorry, my printer. All the different locations in Idaho that we're going to be seeing demonstrations. He said that he's going to uphold the law. People can peacefully protest, and they don't want any violence. They said, we are not going to allow what happened in California to happen in Idaho. And I believe that. I was a state police officer. We're trained in dealing with mobs and things like this. And I trust the professionalism of the officers themselves. Um, and I don't think the admin in Idaho is quite as tied up as the admin in California were, where they were just, no reasonable person will just take a rock to the head and just, sorry, my supervisor won't let me respond to this. That's ridiculous. So next week I will be going out. I'm a state youth committee person for the Republican Party for my county and in the state. So I go up as a delegate to go vote and go and talk about different things that we would like to see secured in Idaho or changed. And we send that up to our elected leaders. So I assume I'll be seeing Raul Labrador there. He's a very kind person. A lot of our state leaders often come to these things. So I'll be participating in that. I did try and step away from involvement with the GOP and the Republican Party. However, my county was in need of a state youth committee person. And youth, meaning anyone younger than 40 and older than 18. And the person who had it before had a little bit more progressive ideology. And so she left thinking it was traumatizing or something. I don't know. I'm like, really? Were you doxxed online? Were you threatened online? Did you have a newspaper write articles condemning you and saying that you did awful things? Because that happened to us. So, yeah, I mean, you get used to it, I guess. Anyways, one thing I did want to cover is how these types of mobs and protests actually start. Christian Zybar says hi. Christian is a very good friend. Well, America is professional at sparking these types of events because we do it in other nations. And a lot of our Democrat political leaders in California are on these committees that oversee some of these things in other nations. So they have some idea of how these things work. But why would they Why would they be inciting a riot? Is it simply for right versus left? Um, no, it's not as simplistic as that. They love power, they love control. And the thing is when you flood in more population, you get more representatives for your state. And you have more population, more representatives, you get more of an electoral vote. And so look at what happened. They thought that they could flood in immigrants, allow them to vote, and they were voting. Like illegal aliens were voting in our last election and previous. This is all documented. This is all being investigated. It's all now finally being taken care of. All the fraudulent things, all the awful things that have been happening throughout our nation. Billions and billions of dollars funneled to corrupt people at the taxpayers' expense and not benefiting the American people, just lining the pockets of corrupt politicians. Christian says, people think there's only two sides, but we don't see all the complexities. That's true. In fact, we probably see that it's more like a Palpatine type situation often, where you have people playing both sides. I've seen that here in my local politics with the state of Idaho. I've seen someone try to sidestep their position and bend the rules. And this was a Latter-day Saint. And he was doing basically the bidding of bad faith actors to harm the church and the Republican Party, and basically anybody who supported Donald Trump. And just because you don't have Trump derangement syndrome does not mean you have Trump endorsement syndrome. However, we are glad that he's doing what he is doing, and he learned from his last experience. Christian says, many oversimplify it down to, quote, there's the compassionate people and the mean ones, close quote. Yeah, in fact, we're actually going to cover that. The CIA actually has a paper that was approved for release in 2017, taken from secret to public, and talks about how you generate these types of mobs and protests to topple a regime. Because we do this. We're professionals at it. So we're going to go through some of these tick marks. One of the main things is creating a martyr for the cause. And that truly is one of the best things you could do. And what does Satan do? He patterns himself after true things, good things. So Christ, the ultimate sacrifice, the best thing to do is create martyrs, right? We saw that with all of Marxism and socialism. They create a victim class. They say, I'm a victim. Something I saw as a parole agent for the state of Idaho. I had lots of people. My focus was completely on, I need to get this person's mind out of why do bad things happen to me? I'm a victim, and have it change. Have them take steps of repentance without me being able to talk about God and Jesus. That's very hard to do because the state wants to mimic true change. And ultimately, you want people to say, I can overcome this difficulty. And so that's what I mainly focused on. But then you also have these white-collar felons who they're very good at masking. So they could do all the superficial things, meet all the tick marks, and get off of probation, even though inside they're completely still deranged. And we've seen this. There's Latter-day Saints that are like this too. I could think of one right off the hand. Anyways, but they create a victim class, and then they set themselves up for a light, and they say, well, I have experience, I have trauma. My trauma gives me experience, and that makes me an authority over this. Well, this is not unheard of, right? catch the buzz. Melissa says hello. Hello, Melissa. The CIA, on this mark for creating a martyr, it says specific jobs will be assigned to other elements in order to create a quote martyr close quote for the cause, leading the demonstrators into a confrontation with authorities. I was warned against this and trained against this as a state police officer when I was a state trooper, not as a felony parole agent. As to provoke riots or shootings, which may cause the death of one or more persons who would become martyrs, a situation which should be taken advantage of immediately. And the thing is, look at January 6th, right? This is the insurrection. You know, they're being ushered in. You have FBI agents who are inciting it. You have lots of people inciting it, opening the doors and everything. That insurrection was catered. It was created. And all the things that could have been avoided were purposely not avoided. So we can have the Speaker of the House's daughter to coincidentally be making a documentary that day, knowing exactly what was going to happen. What a coincidence. Okay, let's continue on reading this. Who had become martyrs, a situation which should be taken advantage of. Okay, yeah, but we also do that as well. Republicans do it too. We had the woman who was killed in the Capitol building. Was it the Capitol building? She was shot. You had a BLM, Black Lives Matter guy in the back who's a paid protester from Salt Lake, and he says, "Oh, gun, 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 gun." Yeah, and it kind of hypes up the situation. And the officer, I know if I were to do what the officer did, that would be that's career ending for any officer. And then, so the Republicans then had their martyr, and we still do this, right? So we go, our martyr, hey, our martyr versus your martyrs. That's what we're kind of up against because we're using the same tools. It should be taken advantage of immediately against the regime as to create greater conflicts, because the idea is to create chaos and create a storm of exhaustion and stretching your supplies. And these cops out there, I mean, I've pulled some long hours. These guys are pulling longer, way longer. Christian says, so weird to get ads in the middle of the live videos. You know what? I actually went to turn it off, and then it kept poking up and asking, put on more and more. What was it? It said, we noticed you haven't put in the wording, live ads. So I thought it was just, low, but YouTube needs more money. I get maybe $100 every few months to pay for Zoom and stuff like that. So sorry about that, Christian. Let's see. The next part is the way of carrying out an uprising in mass meetings. It may be affected by means of a small group in a small group of guerrillas infiltrated among the masses. That's exactly what it is. And I've done this too, not inside a riot or anything, but like for undercover. It's not like, I was never an undercover person or anything, but we always carried our street clothes and everything in case we were needed for a particular situation and where we would have to be in a certain area. So we had one of these situations that we were asked to do that in well, I'm not going to talk about that. So, but it was up in, yeah. Anyways, It may be affected by means of small groups and guerrilla-infiltrated small masses. The masses, you have to hype them up. Some people are already hyped up. You get the mobocracy, you get a mob mentality. Those who will have the mission of agitating, we know that this was done for January 6th by our own government, giving the impression that they are numerous and that they have extensive popular support, enjoying the tactics of force of 200 to 300 agitators. A demonstration can be created in which 10,000 to 20,000 persons take part. And we know that there are riots that happen to occur throughout our nation spontaneously, where bricks are delivered because they are being delivered. There's some fake imagery of people taking pictures and say, see, look, they had a pallet of bricks, and it's, from Amazon. But then there's video footage of these cinder blocks being brought in, people with backpacks and hammers breaking it up, giving it to people, and then gas masks, like very nice gas masks, being dropped off. Pauline says, I always find your observations interesting and enlightening. Thank you. I find everybody's insights interesting. I feel like there's something to gain from everybody, regardless of their who they are or their status. Christian says, I told people back in 2020, watch for who's dropping off the bricks. Yeah. And right now, our good new FBI director is tracking down the money. These people are caught. Even AOC has to account for, she's being audited. All these people, all these bad faith actors who project their sins upon everybody else are finally being investigated. And so this is what children do. This is a natural thing, is when you get in trouble, you have people go, your kid tries to make a scene, right? And go, no. Like, I had people who I would arrest who would respond way outside they blow it out of proportion and make it a huge deal because they're trying to draw attention and make you so uncomfortable that your supervisors kind of pull you off or say, okay, let's not do that. But or draw more people in so it looks like, look, I'm outnumbered. Oh my gosh, I'm a victim. It's all a call for victimhood. Christian says, I stay away from the protest. Too much potential for mistaken identity. Yeah, stay away from them. I think protests are stupid. What does it accomplish? It's there for subtle, crafty things to happen. It's like keep your focus here. I'm going to do something over here. But children do this. I notice my son, he'll scream bloody murder if my wife is around, but if it's just me, it's like, like he falls down and gets hurt or something, he'll go, it's the end of the world. But if it's just me, he's just, but people do this to get out of trouble too. I had a girl I was arresting who tried to sexualize everything and tried to, build their case for court, right? Or they start kicking, they create a scene to require more people, more authoritative, people to secure the situation. But that doesn't look good. And we care more about what looks good than what actually is good these days. I work for the government. I worked in law enforcement. I guarantee everything. I know for a fact they care more about what looks good than what actually is good. And administrators, public relations, they don't care if things are being done properly. Their job is to make things look pretty. They don't want to hear about going hands-on with somebody, even if you're forced into the situation. So a lot of law enforcement feel like their own administrators don't have their back, and that's hard. And so there's a lot of people who are just like, well, I'm not going to act. I had a police officer that I worked with who he did not want to do anything. Anytime there was something, he was too afraid that he would make a mistake. And so he would try to get himself busy with something else. And he's like, I got a family to look after. I'm like, what, do you think you're going to die? You're going to get killed or something? Mind you, this is a guy who's been in a shooting situation before. And he's like, no, I'm worried I'll lose my job. Anyways. Melissa says, my husband works for the state right now. He's dealing with some of that. Yeah. I've worked for a few places in the state of Idaho, and I know you guys are Idaho. He has served on jury duty twice, which he didn't really like, but it's funny because he likes to watch court shows. I actually got called in for jury duty, and they dismissed me because the prosecutor knew me and the judge knew me, but also the defense attorney knew me, and he's like, no, he's a former cop. No, we don't want him. No. So they're like, okay. I'm like, oh my gosh, the easiest day of my life. Goodbye. Gosh, I'm sick of going to court. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. Anyways, they're calling this No King's Day. Why are they focused on this? I had a bunch of comments streaming about this on Facebook. A good friend, she was like a mother to me. And coincidentally, her and her son, who is like one of my best friends, we got in trouble a lot. I mean, like, we didn't get in trouble, but we did troublesome things, and we had interactions with law enforcement. Like, in one case, our buddies got stopped who were doing things that they shouldn't. And I saw my buddy, this friend, who was hiding in the bushes and these reeds, and he's just like sitting there. He's like, oh my gosh. And I remember walking up, like, oh man, what are you guys doing? Man, you guys are doing stupid things. I would have done stupid things too if I was there, but luckily I didn't get in trouble or do anything stupid. Another time was about to do something stupid by the beach. And then the law enforcement officers there wanted, they stopped us. They didn't charge us for anything or do anything like that. They sat us and then set us up to be informants. And then, but because this was a city that's so far away, I just never returned. And I just never did informant stuff. So I'm like, oh, wow, got out of that. It was weird being on the other side, finally being a law enforcement officer and seeing things. Anyways, why do they call us No King's Day? Sorry, I went off on a tangent. This guy's mom, who's like a second mother to me, and I have lots of second mothers, she's super liberal. And she was like, we got to bring down the oppressed. You don't even realize that this oligarchy, Trump wants to be a king. He sits on thrones of gold. And I'm like, that's really funny. Trump actually makes a remark to this when he was asked by the press, what do you think about No King's Day? He's like, no king, there's no kings here. I mean, he's like, do you know what I have to go through to get something passed? It takes a long time. If I was a king, it would have been easy. And that's true. I think even kings back in the day did have issues. But I think it's very ironic that the fact is that they are saying No King's Day when they are literally the people who want to be the authority on morals and change the laws. And that brings me to my next point, is in the Book of Mormon. Oh, you know what? Should we go on to the Book of Mormon comparison? Or do you guys want to hear about the guy on the motorcycle with the Mexican flag? Do we want to hear more about who? Let's cover him real quick. Let's cover that professional protester in his $2.1 million home and all his motorcycles. And how he's probably not even Mexican. He's actually Venezuelan. Or at least he's been known to be sending money back to Venezuela. In fact, his phone has been pinged in pro-Palestine rallies, pro-Hamas rallies, or protests, and then 3 Kamala Harris rallies, right? Because you have to pay people to attend those rallies, otherwise there wouldn't be anybody there. So, I think that's pretty much. I could go over some details if you wanted, but I think let's move over quickly to the comparison of the Book of Mormon. And what I'm going to go over is, if you look at kingmen in the Book of Mormon, this is typically a group who wanted to overthrow the government of the Nephites. They want to overthrow the government of the Nephites. So how are we doing that today? Inviting undocumented people in, so you have a greater population, so you have more representatives on your political side, so you get more electoral votes, so you can monopolize everything. And you do this in major cities, in major states that then can control. If you get these select key areas that have more electoral votes, then those places like Ohio, they no longer become swing states. They get locked into an artificial thing where we're having non-citizens represent the voting cast of the population. So that's trying to topple the government, because that is dishonest, and it's pointed to try and destroy our government, our nation, our sovereignty. America means the sovereign ruler of the nations. I think it comes from Heinrich and Amerigo, which is the Italian version. Heinrich, I think, is the German version. And if you go back, Pharaoh means great house. So I think that's kind of funny how you have that dynamic there. Because to me, I feel like Joseph was to Pharaoh, or the great house, what the Latter-day Saint Church is to the United States. Pharaoh. Kingmen. All right. We're going to look at Alma 51, verses 1 through 8. All right. The chapter heading for this is "The Kingmen Seek to Change the Law and Set Up a King. Horan and the freemen are supported by the voice of the people. Moroni compels the kingmen to defend their nation or be put to death. Amalickiah and the Lamanites, Amalickiah, if you remember, he left the Nephites, usurped authority, became a ruler of Lamanites, to then come back against his own people. Sound familiar? Capture many fortified cities. Teancum's awesome. Repels the Lamanite invasion and slays Amalickiah in his tent. Spear, javelin. All right, so we're just going to do the eight verses after I read Spencer's comment. Laughs. I got a chuckle at the post by some guy saying he's planning to go to protests, but Trump stickers are on the cars and watch them destroy each other's property. And watch them destroy each other. Oh, yeah. Go put Trump stickers at one of these rallies, and then they just destroy their own stuff. Well, they are in a habit of destroying their own things. All right, let's go through this. Verse 1. And now it came to pass in the commencement of the 25th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Funny how we're in 2025. This is actually about 66, 67 BC, though. But I think it's funny how it's 25th year of the reign of the judges. They having established peace between the people of Lehi and the people of Morianton concerning their lands, right? Borders. And having commenced the 25th year in peace. Nevertheless, they did not long maintain an entire peace in the land, for there began to be a contention, right, President Nelson has warned us about contention being anger in our hearts, not contending one with another, not contending for the faith, but having the spirit of anger and contention. Among the people concerning the chief judge Pahoran, for behold, there were a part of the people who desired that a few particular points of the law should be altered. Does that sound familiar? They want the law altered, and because of that, it generates contention and hatred. But behold, Pahoran would not alter nor suffer the law to be altered. Therefore, he did not hearken to those who had sent in their voices, like a constitutional republic or a democracy. Not suffer the law to be altered. Therefore, did not hearken with their voices with the petition concerning the altering of the law. Therefore, those who were desirous that the law should be altered were angry. Remember, the spirit of anger, contention, hatred. And anger comes from a disruption of your will, right? They don't care about the Lord's will, they care about their will. Anger with him, and desired that he should no longer be chief judge over the land. We don't like this ruler. Therefore, there arose a warm dispute concerning the matter, but not unto bloodshed, right? They're heated, talking about, hey, no. And it came to pass that those who were desirous that Pahoran should be dethroned from the judgment seat were called kingmen. For they were desirous that the law should be altered in the manner to overthrow the free government and to establish a king over the land. So they actually do want a king over the land. And so they're trying to change the law to establish a king. This is the fear that the left has right now. But the thing is that they kind of expose their own desires because they're projecting. It's a pattern. You watch the pattern, they project something, and they say, you do this. And they're like, but we don't do that. What are you talking about? It's because they're actually wanting to do it themselves, or they are doing it themselves. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to come to repentance. They don't want to reveal themselves and repent and change. But they still have to get out of their system. So they project instead of repent. They blame somebody else. It's his fault. It's not mine. Somebody has to take that blame. Scapegoat. It's like, in a way, they're casting their sins upon somebody else, because inadvertently we want to cast away our sins, and they do it upon the most righteous that they can find. They're looking for a lamb of slaughter. This is just inherent. It's where we come from. It's what we do. We repent, we cast our sins away, and that lamb of sacrifice, it's taken. We have Jesus Christ for that. They don't like Jesus Christ. They don't want Jesus Christ. So they can't cast it out on followers of Jesus Christ. That's crazy how that happens, isn't it? It's like Satan trying to imitate that. Oh, I do cast my sins away onto those guys. Doesn't change. The heart doesn't do anything. All right. Those that were desirous, religion by a free government. Okay. And it came to pass that this matter of their contention was settled by the voice of the people. The voice of the people chose. And it came to pass that the voice of the people came in favor of freemen. And Pahoran retained the judgment seat, which caused much rejoicing among the brethren of Pahoran, and also many people of liberty, who also put the kingmen to silence, that they durst not oppose, but were obligated to maintain the cause of freedom. Verse 8. Now those who were in favor of kings were those of high birth, and they sought to be kings. Do you see that? The Book of Mormon is revealing exactly what is happening here. Have you noticed that all this money that went to Black Lives Matter and all these other things, all these protests, all this money laundering that has been happening for decades now, that we're finally now investigating? Satan knoweth his time is short, and so he's ravaging, right? We see that with our liberal, corrupt politicians, and also some on the right. They know that their time is short. They're losing control. They're slipping up. And all these things are being manifested. And it's because they're funneling money back into themselves. Heck, in Chicago, their toll booth system, they sold their toll booth system out so that the revenue that the toll booths get go to a different nation, because the nation purchased the ability to receive that revenue. So we'll give you some immediate money now. In the long run, we'll get this. This is the type of pattern, is the immediate gratification and satisfaction and power that kingmen are seeking after, because they wish themselves to be kings. They're of high birth, high nobility, or high position. Notice even this paid protester, he's in a $2.1 million home with motorcycles. He's a paid protester. By recycling these things, he's being kept in positions of financial wealth and power and comfort. Kingmen. That's what the left wants. But then they take a bunch of, for lack of a better term, useful idiots and say, look at victimhood, I'm a victim. Please follow me. I said this with Chief Miniga. I'm a victim. I have had trauma. You need to understand me. I don't need to understand you. I don't care. But because I'm a victim, this is a Marxist play. Remember, I'm a victim. I need your attention and your sympathy. Latter-day Saints fall into a lot of this because they go, oh my gosh, that is so awful that that happened to you. They end up getting into a position where either you go with the mainstream of what's expected, wave that rainbow flag, or else you're not going to fit in the company party. Selling out. They're serving other gods is what it is. Same thing that Terah, the father of Abraham, did. He sold out to other gods by serving other kings. If he is Teru of Urkesh, who I absolutely believe he is, who served the king of Mari and their gods and the surrounding gods, he basically did DEI. He was an appointed ruler, did DEI, and placated to other kings and their gods, but not to his own. He forsook his own god and the people who he was over. He forsook their god. So we're seeing this play out again. All right. And they were supported by those who sought power and authority over the people. They seek power over people. We seek liberty. So what's the best thing to do? Exactly what spoiled, rotten tantrums get, from bratty children. No. Oh my gosh. Hey, sir, are you hurting your child? What's going on? No, I'm not hurting him. He's just sitting on the floor because he doesn't want to leave the store. And it's forcing me to pick him up. And he goes, ow, ow, ow. There was a really bratty kid that was in Scouts with us. Super wealthy family. This kid was spoiled rotten. I couldn't stand him. We went snowboarding for a Scout activity or a young men's activity. He didn't want to leave. And so when the leader came up to gather us, he wanted to go back up on the slopes. And the leader came up and said, no, we're done. We have to go. We're leaving. He's like, no, if I want to snowboard, I'll snowboard. And so the guy's like, no, grabs the jacket and says, we're leaving. The guy says, oh, the kid goes, who are you? Oh, you, stranger. Made the leader let go. And guess what happened? The leader was too scared, all the attention on him. And so the kid goes back on the slopes. That's exactly what these protesters are doing. They're being trained to cause a ruckus. And you have key people, is what we do in other nations, to cause issue. What's the end goal? The end goal is to put the left in power artificially so that they can become kings, live like kings, but they're jealous because they look at Trump and say, oh, he's living like a king. They look at the right, oh, they're living like kings. They have power and ruling. When on their end, they're thinking, like Trump's like, I'm just trying to serve the people. I live in this nation. I believe in God. Right? We have to make this sustainable. But the left, they only care about now, immediate. Leftist lunacy. Anyways, that's my thoughts there. And I know the church's stance on borders and everything like that. It's simple. Is like we care about the family being together, but we also know that each nation has an obligation to secure its own borders. And that's not just America. That's every nation. Every nation is accountable for what they are neglecting. And so a lot of people, especially among Latter-day Saints, don't like talking politics, don't like getting into it because they see it as contentious. They go, oh, no, this is contention. Talking, man. Or they see themselves, oh, I'm above that. The thing is I'm serving in political situations here in this county simply because those people who are better equipped to do so refuse to do so. They lack the will. I'm only doing it because nobody else will. And I care deeply about our liberties. And I know that my involvement has made impacts. So I wish somebody else would do it. And I think we need to start having discussions of politics and religion in the home. It's okay to talk about. If we don't talk about it, then we become accustomed to doing what is expected of us because that's the social norm. And the social norm is quickly becoming very flamboyant and perverted. Like Pocatello right now, they're going to start hosting a drag live, a drag reality TV show in Pocatello. They're trying very hard. And us as Latter-day Saints, we're kind of like, we're going to be peacemakers. Peacemakers don't just walk away and just be acted upon. We are to act for ourselves. We're going to be judged and accountable for everything that we chose not to do as well. And I hope we remember that. And I'm not saying to get contentious, because there's people like even that mother I spoke to who was super liberal, still good friends. I can be friends as long as they are willing to be friends. There doesn't need to be raised voices, but we need to be able to follow motive, follow the money, and look for opportunity. We could project and see, where are these opportunities popping up at? What's the end goal? And the Book of Mormon in Alma, chapter 51, verses 1 through 8, revealed a lot of what we need to know right there. It's a very, very compatible, similar situation. It's the voice of the people are being beaten down by the louder people, the people who are getting paid. You have influencers in New York City for tomorrow. Tomorrow is No King's Day, who were being offered $200 a day, or $200 a day to go be part of these protests and do their influencer stuff. And guess what? Most your TikTok teenage influencers are not the brightest, especially these city dwelling ones. They're going like, money? Money? Yeah, money, 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 money. It's not all about money for us. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that you gain some insight from this. Lots of people have talked about it. We do have war breaking out in Israel right now, taking a preemptive attack on the nuclear facilities and engineers of Iran, which have been complained about for years. Um, I know other influencers have said, well, this is going to drag us out into another war. Kay Green says, check out Connor Boyack's books and resources to teach kids. Yeah, I worked for him. I was his operations manager. Connor Boyack with Libertas Institute and Tuttle Twins. You know, if you had some of those Tuttle Twins books, I probably shipped them to you. I probably talked to you on the computer. Connor was one of the he sat down and would take time to talk and listen, and he really does listen, and he'll answer questions. And I asked him about, like, how do you go about writing a book, and he's just a great guy. And he probably looked at me like I was some naive guy that was joining the police force in Idaho and didn't know what I was getting myself into. And to some extent, he was right about that. But yeah, I do like Connor's Sunday musings. I haven't always agreed with him on everything, but I think it'd be foolish not to listen and take time with him. In fact, gosh, sometimes I wish I stayed with his organization, because things would be going really well. They are going very well for him. So I'd echo what Kay Green says, is check out Connor's musings. I love Connor. Worked with him for some time before I went into law enforcement. Very, very knowledgeable, easy person to get to know or be around. But that's it on my end, unless you guys want to talk about something else. But I think the news is flooding us like crazy. We've been prepared for this exact thing by our living prophet, President Russell M. Nelson, that we knew that contention would happen not only online, but in person. And we're seeing it with this rise of nationwide peaceful protests. And there's a lot of people who do want a peaceful protest. However, I stand with our law enforcement and with ICE. There's people who have, like, school visas that have been stopped, and they're like, oh, well, look, they're taking away the student. Like, yeah, well, that's half the story. Did you know that that person also had child stuff on his computer, and he's a felon now. And because he broke the law, he's out of here. He's violated the conditions of his visa. So we're not always getting the full truth. We definitely don't want families to be separated. The government's even said that. But when people get arrested and things happen, I've had to arrest people. Oh my gosh. There's a lady who, it was such a difficult situation. I was on native land. I was on the res, on a highway through the res. And this person was trying to evade police, come in. And she's DUI, right? But she's got the kid with her, and she doesn't trust the husband, thinks the husband's brutal to the kid. Yet I'm finding bottles of open vodka under the kid's seat because the mom tried to hide it. So I actually followed up on this family because we had to take care of it, and we had to make certain exceptions and have it go through with a judge and everything. But I followed through with this family. I found out like a year later that woman drank herself to death or OD'd, and that 2-year-old dressed themselves in winter and went wandering out, and the mom had been dead for 3 days. So I actually found a person with the children, oh man, whatever that department is. But that was heartbreaking because I don't want kids to go into the system. I think the system sucks. But at the same time, you can't leave them in the midst of abuse and all that awful stuff. My first experience in law enforcement was a rolling domestic and found a child who was tortured, a mom that was beaten half to death, and a felon with a gun and drugs, and then another kid who just wasn't speaking. We had to get the the older of them, who was the one that was beaten and tortured most. We had to get them over to Spokane, Washington, and to the children's hospital there, and that child was saved. That was my first day. My first day. Before I'm even sworn in, I'm just on the road. That's my first experience with law enforcement, is a child torture case. So not everything is so cut and dry. Kay says, me either, agree with a lot of, and says, my son and family are fostering an 11-year-old whose mom is hooked on drugs. Drugs are hard. We've seen the Comeback podcast. Seen that girl's story. Dude, I swear, I know her from somewhere. I think I grew up in California with her. I think she was in the Stake or something. She looks super familiar to me. And I went through many similar things that she did, except for the heroin stuff. I never did needles, never injected it or did. And I got out of those types of things quickly and on my own, and it was dangerous. It sucked. It was awful. Never did any program or anything. Told myself, I believe in Jesus, but I don't have faith in him. And so I took one day and I just said, everything's gone, changing 100%. And then after I had made those personal changes, there was actually a Latter-day Saint family that had taken me in so I could prepare to go on my mission. So I do believe in change. It's part of why I went and did so many special programs and ran so many special programs as a parole officer, helping people with mental health and drug addiction, substance abuse, help people get on their feet. So I very strongly believe in these things. I very strongly believe people can change. But I also see the signs of when people do not change and people who latch onto the victimhood card. And I got a few people on my mind right now about that who have tried to attack this channel, and we've just had to expose them for what they are. So anyways, that's the end of my rant. I hope you guys have a good night. I went on long enough. You guys are great. Sorry I'm not more interesting. I don't have a better setup like some of our other friends do. Kay Green says, hard for them. They had 5 already, but couldn't let her go into the system. They'd already tried working with the mom. So proud of them. Yeah. I don't like the state established care. And I know they try. And I've worked with a lot of these organizations and in the government with them and get them assistance. But you definitely have to try and get out of the system as fast as possible. One thing I was very successful at is getting people off Social Security, because I found people were more pleased with themselves when they had jobs and could overcome things on their own. They're excited to come into my office and say, Officer Hayes, look, I got a job as a mechanic, and it's something I love doing, and I don't have to take these medications anymore, and I'm working with my doctor, and But then I'd also have a supervisor come in and say, get them on Medicaid, keep them on Medicaid, just make sure they go to their appointments, check the boxes, make sure they're not doing something to get arrested, and then let them go. But I cared a little bit too much than that. Anyways, said bye 1,000 times. I definitely belong in the Midwest. Those Midwest bye-bye. Everyone have a good weekend. Stay safe tomorrow. Be on the lookout. Keep an eye on the news. Don't get worried. Just be informed. And go back and study Alma, chapter 51, and look at it yourself. Just look at these things yourself. It's just something I saw. And there could be other examples of kingmen throughout the Book of Mormon that you might be interested in. So take care. Troy, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone.